All right, so hey, what's up, Mick? You are in the field as usual. First Point
Yeah,
comms, and how are you doing today?
going really good today, Blake. Thank you for asking. It's actually my last day of the week. My wife and I and another couple we're heading away for the weekend. So we're treating ourselves to a long weekend that we booked in a few months ago. So really looking forward to a few more hours of work today, and then I'll be in a holiday mode, mate. Be able to take these work pants off and keep the shorts on for a good 4 or 5 days.
Yeah, so you're driving up north to like the ocean side, or like what's the name of the place you're driving to?
Yeah, so we're flying up
Mm.
sort of to just further north. The place is called the suburb itself is called Surfers Paradise on the Gold Coast of Australia.
Oh man, it sounds amazing.
It
I'm
is.
just
It's nice, mate. It's look. It's. I mean, geez, back when we were younger, that was sort of the place to go to.
yeah,
Look, there's still plenty of things to do if you take the kids there. But no, we just want to get away on the beach, mate, and
yeah.
yeah, just escape the world for a few days. It'd be nice.
I hear you. So we're here to do a brief history of home and broadband connections as it relates to Australia, and we're going to
Yeah.
go back to the mid 2000s. So I got a presentation up on the screen, and then I'm just going to scroll on over and tell me about what's going on here with the mid 2000s, and just go ahead and
Yeah.
kick it over to you.
Sure. So that's sort of about when I started becoming a contractor in the comms industry. Prior to that, I might have mentioned in another podcast we did that I was previously working in IT as a software developer just for a couple of years. And it's sort of when I came into this industry when there wasn't much broadband around. It was just a lot of landlines, a lot of home phones. ADSL, maybe ADSL one may have just been sort of coming into to homes around the country, but it was a really good thinking back now. It was a really good time to sort of enter the industry where being able to see it grow and understand. It was just landline phone lines for a long time, and it was just really good to come in right when ADSL was just sort of starting.
Right. So you came in when it was just when POTS and PSTN.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah. So,
just a landline coming from the exchange, just the copper lines out to each home, and your homes had a lot of phones. You might have had one on the kitchen wall. Cordless phones were not very common either. So it was a really good time to sort of enter the industry, and and sort of seen it grow over the past 14 years, I suppose. And yeah, a lot, especially in the last few years, there's been a lot of changes, but yeah, so
yeah, I think you have what a PSTN line is, like on another slide, but I recognize the term POTS, but I don't have much experience with a POTS, like a plain old telephone system is what it stands for, right?
something like that. Yeah, plain ordinary
Plain,
telephone
yeah,
system.
I don't have much experience, and then I had
Yeah,
to look up what is it, a public switch telephone
yes,
network? Yeah, publicly switched
yes,
telephone, yeah,
very good, very
yeah.
good.
I
Which basically, yeah, which just means it comes from the exchange, and there's some switching gets done in the exchange. And it's funny in some of the exchanges, there's still some old equipment where the switching used to be done manually.
yeah.
Uh,
Oh wow.
that was back in the day, and then and yeah, I mean, it's all probably moved then to relays, and then maybe nowadays it's digitally switched. I don't really know what goes on behind the scenes, with the equipment inside the back of the exchanges. But any contract work I've done has always been in the front of the exchange where it's just all copper pairs.
Yep. So then in the late 2000s, we're getting into some hybrid
Yeah,
fiber and copper.
yeah. So the other type of copper that we see is it's just using the coax cable, and that's called HFC, a hybrid of fiber and coax, and it's probably that's been around a while, that technology, and it's probably very similar to what we're seeing more now, where the optic fiber comes up to a point and then it's spread out throughout the homes, using copper, and this is using just coax cable where there's a really thick coax cable, comes down the street and gets split off into all the homes, and that was that was more done in the part of Australia that I live and work. That was more done closer to the suburbs, the inner suburbs. That type of technology really didn't spread out to the outer suburbs of Melbourne. But there was some great speeds with that HFC. There was a lot more sharing involved in that, so you get your a lot more congestion than what you did than what you sort of see on ADSL, where it's a dedicated line back to the exchange.
Yeah, so I'm reading about the 48-volt DC source of the dial tone. What is
Yeah.
that? Because you mentioned some magic wall socket, by magic. Like, what is that? What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, so let's say from the homeowner's point of view, or just from someone living in a house, to have a landline working, you just sort of it's sort of more about behind the scenes what actually happens. So let's say for a regular PowerPoint, we all just plug something in, we turn it on, and power comes out of the wall socket. We don't actually sort of think where it comes from. So this was just a bit of a description on where the actual phone line comes from. We magically plug a phone in, to a wall socket, and magically we just have this dial tone, and we can make a call to somebody. But the behind the scenes of that is that actual line comes from somewhere, and it comes from a building in the middle of the suburb called the Exchange Building, and underground the lines travel through pits and conduits and end up at that wall socket. But without actually sort of knowing where it comes from, it can seem like a bit of magic.
Yeah, I got you. So tell me about the ADSL. Like, how does that kind of relate, or how's that different from PSTN?
Yeah, so the PSTN or the POTS is just the from the exchange itself. There's just a pair of wires in a block in the exchange, and the name of the game for us technicians is just to get that pair of wires, into the home. Really, that's from the starting point to the end point. And the way the ADSL signal gets added to the line, so there's no changes to get made out in the network at all. The ADSL gets combined inside the exchange, so you've got the two services running down the same, on that single copper pair, and then inside the home it can get split back out. So some of the phone points in the house just still have the regular dial tone, but then you'd plug your modem into a certain socket where the ADSL signal the modem would be using the ADSL signal to sync up and talk broadband.
Speeds of ADSL. What are we looking at here?
So originally, I'm trying to think back. Originally, ADSL speeds were ADSL 1 was about 1.5 meg down and about 256k up, so a quarter of a meg up.
Yeah.
And then that was the original ADSL 1, and then there was like a faster ADSL 1 that some ISPs used to try and sell as ADSL 2, which was 8 meg down and about 384k up, bit of a third of a meg up. But we, as technicians, we still called that ADSL 1. And then the technology improved, and whatever happens inside the exchanges, they upgraded their DSLAMs or whatever, and all of a sudden ADSL 2 could be applied to the line, and which started a maximum of 24 meg down, 1 meg up. But those speeds held on for a lot longer. You could easily still get those speeds at a kilometre away. And then the maximum for ADSL or ADSL 2, they used to say, was about 4 kilometres of copper cable. Mm-hmm. And if you did live 4 kilometres away from the exchange, your speeds were, down pretty slow. They were down to, 2 or 3 meg maybe, depending on the type of copper line under the ground as well. Some more rural areas, the copper was a lot thicker under the ground, so that you'd get a faster speed and even further distance as the signal doesn't attenuate, or it. Look, I'll get my terms mixed up, but you know what I mean. You get a stronger signal at the other end.
Sure.
Naked ADSL. So traditionally, that copper line coming from the exchange still had a dial tone on it. So where you plug in your phone and you could make a phone call down that same line. And I suppose some internet providers realised that as ADSL and as broadband was taken over and mobile phones were taking over, that a lot of people didn't need their landline as much, and probably even more so nowadays. We just get a lot of call centers, calling you on the landline, trying to sell you something. So the landline itself is just used less and less. So I think some providers started realizing that, look, let's to reduce the monthly cost, of how much they can charge the customers, let's remove the dial tone, so they're not paying for a landline, and but still getting the ADSL signal into their modem. Okay. So that was the birth of naked DSL.
Yep. VDSL.
VDSL. So ADSL was a predominant way to deliver broadband into homes, and like I mentioned on previous times we've talked, this is all residential. I'm not talking about big business in the cities. Right. So the DSL signal runs fine down a copper pair, but it's the speed's always been limited to the distance of the copper. And then so in the past few years, the Australian government has really tried hard to improve the broadband speeds into Australian homes. And newer technology they've been using, which is similar to ADSL, but it's just a lot faster, but it doesn't travel as far, is VDSL. So it looks inside the home, it looks exactly the same. You plug your modem into the wall socket. The modem communicates down the copper lines, but they have more of those green boxes that I've showed you before. Those things called a node. Yep. Which is essentially exactly what was happening in the exchanges, but on just a really small level. Right. Where there's fiber coming in from somewhere, and some magic happens and spits out copper lines that go to the home. And because that they did it, so there's a lot shorter copper line, so they can use the VDSL technology down those pairs.
So this is talking about all those terms you're using around, like fiber to the node, fiber to the curb.
Yep. So the fiber to the node was what I was talking about then, where you have those green boxes which are called a node, and there's fiber up to that point and copper to the home. The fiber to the curb, which we've been seeing in the past year or so, it doesn't use those green nodes. It's more a little box that's installed in the pit, and the fiber goes into that little box, and so your copper line is very short. It's just from the pit to the home, but it still uses the VDSL to talk between the modem and that box. But being such a shorter distance again, the speeds are just amazing compared to what we've had anyway.
So why are they limiting the speeds at 100 megabits per second? Is there a technical limitation, or is that just like a monetary? What is the reasoning behind that?
Yeah, so as far as what I've just read up myself, the maximum speed of VDSL seems to be about 140 meg on the down, and around 50 on the up. Gotcha. I'm sure there's probably going to be, and there may even be in other countries, there may be further releases of VDSL and different, compression technologies or whatever that can actually deliver more than that. But at the moment, I'm only really guessing it's probably just a thing that the telcos are just limiting. As far as it goes, it's more just the way we get charged for what speed and what usage we use. So to me, maybe because it's still new, it's probably just maybe a sales type thing where they it appears that we can pay more for more speeds. But I'm sure it is probably a limiting thing of the VDSL technology that they're using. Maybe 100's a good speed that it operates at well. Maybe pushing it to its limits may make it fall over a bit. But I'll be only guessing.
So is it all government regulated in Australia? Is that what's going on here?
I'm not too sure about
what
the regulations. I just sort of more see the physical, what speeds. When I look down at the little test modem, we can see what speed it's connecting at. and then we can also see what speed the homeowner's been restricted to, throttled back to, I suppose you might say. But look, it's all fairly new. This whole project that the government's taken on, it's very new. It's only a few years old. Actually changing homes over, that's only been happening for a few years. So it's
And this is the NBN project you're talking about.
That's right. That's right. Yeah.
So that's a government funded effort. And
Yes.
are they working alongside other internet service providers or other companies that own infrastructure, or is it strictly government for all of the infrastructure?
Oh, look, I'll try not to get too much into the politics of it. So
No, I hear it. No, I hear you.
Yeah, even on a personal, even in my own work environment, being a contractor, I'm quite happy to just sort of know what I know and get good at that without know too much about the behind the scenes stuff. But I just know it's driven by the government, but it's they've hired thousands of contractors like me and different types of contractors to do the installation work. And then the telcos basically rent those lines off, off the government or the NBN company, however it actually works. But so no telcos actually own the lines. They just all rent these new lines.
Yeah, it's interesting for me because when Google Fiber came in here and they were trying to get onto the poles
Yep.
in Nashville, because you can't really dig that much. You can, but it requires a lot of dynamite because there's a lot of limestone. So the poles are actually there's government regulation, or there's some sort of regulation around that, because a couple, I think it's Comcast and AT&T, have exclusivity for the poles, and they had to battle it out in court to get access to the poles. So it's kind of interesting how it works, in each different, state and country. That's why I was asking about this NBN project, but you're just happy just to be a part of it. It sounds like, who cares about the policy? I mean, as long as you have work and then there's broadband speeds, increasing to more homes, and who cares about the politics? It sounds like it's a good effort, in my opinion.
That's right. Yeah. Just on what you said, I know some of the poles that our cable or the broadband cables do hang from, they do share them with the power companies.
Yeah.
So I know there is some sort of I'm sure some sort of arrangement there where I know some guys, you do need training on certain poles, and again, I'm not exactly sure of the details, but there's no other telcos sharing the poles. It's just the electrical companies that we sort of see.
Yep. So give me a brief rundown on these different types of infrastructure and technologies on the
Sure.
Yep.
So in the past few years, because the project's so big, and not everybody lives in the tight suburbs. Australia's a big country, obviously, and to deliver fiber into every home was never going to. It was just too much of a challenge, I assume, and just a overkill, and it was probably going to blow the project out, way too, the time frame and the budget and whatever. So the way it's been done is a mixture of technologies, and this is, I've only worked on a couple of these technologies, and the rest of it is just something that I've researched, for my own interest. There's a couple of types of wireless options, mainly for remote areas. And a couple of types of copper options, and obviously the optic fiber as well. So in a brand new estate, it's all optic fiber, which is what you call fiber to the home, and that's all that way. But the other types are just how they've tried to change existing homes and existing streets to how to improve the broadband speeds in those areas. They've used just a different allocated for different suburbs, or even different streets in different suburbs have allocated a different type of technology, and then it's up to us technicians, contractors, sort of build that backbone infrastructure, and then go out and install that type of technology into the home. So in the one suburb, you can easily have 2 or 3 or more types of broadband that the home would be connected to. So even if you moved house from one side of the suburb to a next or into a newer estate, you'd highly likely to get a different type of broadband connection coming into the home. But like you just said before, does it really matter? As long as the broadband speeds are high.
Yeah, exactly.
Does it really matter what's under the ground? And I'm a firm believer in no, it doesn't. As long as the average family can do what they need to do, watch all the Netflix they need to do, and upload their do their streaming, do whatever they need to do, then I'm more a practical person when it comes to that sort of thing.
I like it. All right. I'm on the summary page. There's a lot.
Yep.
And do you want to sum up the summary page?
I actually can't read it, mate. It's a bit I put too much into that page. What do we say here? Oh, that was just me. That was sort of my opinion on excuse the video here. I'm right up to my phone at the moment. That was me sort of saying that basically what I was trying to say here was that if someone like myself who's been a contractor in telco for 14 years now, just the guys that I know well, and then there's hundreds of us guys across the country, and we all sort of have similar stories. So we all go into similar type of homes, meet and talk to similar people. And it sort of comes back to just an argument that I touched on before about how fast do we really need to be when exactly. I think we sort of see the average family, the average person, and I sort of reckon at the moment 100 meg is fine for speeds. So
right.
If you could consistently deliver 100 meg into each home, I really think at the moment until the next big technology thing comes along and that we need in our home, I still sort of sit quite confidently on that would be plenty of speed. I know you talk about gigabit speed, which sounds fantastic, and I'm sure you do need that in bursts at times. When you download something big, but for the average, mum and dad with 2.5 kids, which is sort of what we sort of see. I'm sure there will be a needed future, but at the moment, I think those speeds are fine, and which is what the current way the broadband's been rolled out in Australia is delivering. Those speeds to most homes.
Yeah, you made a good point because you really broke it down, the math of it, what they would be doing on peak hours, watching Netflix, checking email, based on the typical household. And you also mentioned some interesting stats about all of the different technicians like yourself, and then you say, well, there's this many people and we know the data, so we could probably make some pretty reasonable assumptions as to whether or not an average home would need more than 100 megabits per second. Exactly. And then I kind of fire back, as like, well, what if you want to download, your virtual machines, and then you have 48 IoT devices and you got 7 people watching Netflix? A completely unrealistic scenario is what I fired back with. And you kind of said, well, that's not really going to happen. So
well, it's just not what we see. And, and like you said, the stats sort of back it up that we do, guys like me, we see the average home.
Right.
Unless there's this, obviously not business and not, but definitely small business. Your small shops and even your mechanic workshops. We see all that sort of stuff, and I think we have a pretty good cross section. And look, I think it'd be very hard for get a dozen people in a room, a dozen IT guys and tech guys with all different opinions on that statement there. But
I believe that you have a much better understanding of the requirements in Australia for the average household than I do. So we'll leave it at that.
It sounds fine, mate.
You are uniquely qualified to speak on the subject because you do this all day long, and you are an expert in copper fault finding, testing, and running cable to homes and dealing with the stuff on a daily basis. And I really appreciate you hopping on today. Is there anything else you want to close up with, or what else you got going on?
No, just mate. Thanks for doing what you're doing, mate. I've even reached out to a couple of guys that you've had on your on your podcast, and
Oh, cool.
it's a great little community you're building here, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
just
a lot of work,
yeah.
and I'm trying, so I appreciate it.
No, you're doing good, mate, and yeah, I saw you. It's good to see you sweating it up in all hours of the night.
I know. I'm actually gonna
for
go.
your community, mate.
I'm about to go on foot after this. Get a cheeseburger, maybe do a couple videos. We'll see.
Keep it up, mate. Doing a good job.
All right, my friend. Well, I'll talk to you soon. All right.
No worries, Blake. Good chat, mate. Peace.
Yeah. Take care. Peace.